Hi everyone. You've probably heard of CLAUDE.md files. And if you don't know what an MD file is, I have done a quick video linked above so that you could take a look and recap on what are MD files. But here is what most people miss. You can have multiple CLAUDE.md files nested inside the same project, and they stack. The closest one always wins. I am building my SaaS coffee app, Cloud Grind, and I am using 3 levels of CLAUDE.md files to manage totally different contexts without any conflicts. Let me show you how in this video. Once you understand the precedence of these CLAUDE.md files, you can have a root CLAUDE.md that handles the baseline rules such as your brand voice, your product details, and then have subfolder CLAUDE.md files. They would override those for specific work. So my pitch deck folder would have investor-focused rules. My cold email folder would have customer acquisition rules. Claude would read the closest files first, so there will be no conflict, no explaining for these different Claude.md files. Let's get started with a quick recap on what Claude.md is. It is a plain markdown file that serves as your project's memory. If you don't know how to use the .md file or how to set up your first Claude project, I have had videos that I will post the links in the description of this video for you to take a quick look as a recap. But think about it as the file that you want your barista or your team to read, right? Just like how this support article is saying that you wanted to give a briefing for your teammate every morning. You don't want your teammate to restart because that would add on the cognitive load. So you wanted to brief the team on what to avoid. For my coffee example, how much espresso to be put in as a standard, how to clean as the first thing in the morning, how to greet the customers, what to say, what not to say about the seasonal drinks. All those important stuff can go in your Claude.md file. And you don't really need to reference that in prompts, because that adds, again, your thought process. And if you have to attach that manually every time, it really adds up on your workflow. If that file exists as the Claude.md file, Claude would read it automatically, and it will look for a few places. So this is where the precedence rule comes to place. And when it comes to these files, I think most of us, when we get started, the problem is that we will set up just one file at the root level and then try to cram in everything into that file, right? I wanted to make sure that I have investor related notes. I wanted to focus on the competitors. When it comes to writing emails, I wanted to have best practices or all the benefit that I wanted to put in. So this file will eventually become very messy and confusing. Or even worse, Claude would switch context midstream because it doesn't know which rule would be applied where. So you wanted to read the location and the scope of that file and make sure that you are placing them specifically, because the real problem isn't the file itself. It's Claude not knowing how the precedence works, or you as the user who are not fluent enough to know how the precedency works. You need a mental model for which rules applied when. Think about that, just like the project rules, right? How Claude files can be put in a single workspace. You will have the root level, which is served as layer 1, and that applies everywhere in your workspace. It's The root level, so it has the baseline context. It has the shared values, the user information. So in my case, in this project that I have for Claude Grind SaaS, my root level would have my brand voice, the product details, and the sourcing story of my company, right? The value of it. And there's no gatekeeping language. The target persona is going to be a lot wider than any of these specific folders that it has. And then we build on top of that, getting into the cold email or the pitch deck layer, right? Those layers would have CLAUDE.md that applies only inside that specific folder. So it's like telling your cashier to only know about the process or the workflow related to the cashier's job versus the barista on the other side is going to have their specific workflows and their specific folders that would have their rules. So my subfolder number 1, the pitch deck folder, would have something that would override the roots, right? It is going to be investor focused. It's going to have the margins, the retention model, the ROIs being specifically mentioned for that level. And I'm going to sound extremely confident because I'm talking to the investors and I want it to be very number driven, investor specific on what type of messaging is going out. And then the cold email one, right? Those are going to be different. It will be for the customer acquisitions. I wanted to talk about how do I engage with consumers, having them subscribe to my coffee monthly or every other month. I wanted to be conversational, talking about the benefit of having those premium coffees delivered at your door. And there's not going to be a sales pitch rather than a benefit pitch, right? I wanted to talk about what they would gain in terms of all the things that I wanted to be talking to. So how that works, whenever I am opening this Claude Grind SaaS folder, I would see that there are 2 different projects and each one of them would have their Claude.md file, and Claude would read from the most specific tier all the way down. So it would find the closest Claude.md and then work backwards towards the root. So that's how the structure works. So if something is defined in both root and a folder at the same time, the folder would win because there's really no conflict. The folder version would overwrite what the root version said. Here are some practical tips. The first thing is you need to understand the hierarchy. The root Claude.md is your stable baseline. It should contain things that are truly everywhere in the project. It could be your brand voice, the target audience, the product details. The subfolders Claude.md files would be handling the specific differences. And be specific about those differences. If your pitch deck folder needs to be leading with the margins or the KPIs or the numbers, but your cold email folder needs to lead with the benefits to the customers, such as how convenient that your SaaS company could make for your customers to deliver fresh coffee to their doors, make that crystal clear in the respective files. Don't bury them into the details. And then you wanted to keep all of those files updated so that when you change the rules, change them in the right file. If those rules changes apply to all of the Claude Grind work, then update the root Claude.md. If it's pitch deck specific, then update that Claude.md file. It's totally worth your 5 minutes of maintenance to stay consistent with those files. And with that said, this concluded today's video. Now you've got the mental model. You have the closest files that wins your context. There is no conflicts between these CLAUDE.md files, and you no longer need to re-explain everything. You get one product, multiple context. Each of this has its own rules. All of that will be built with the same brand foundation. This is how I built Claude Grind to stay consistent across investor pitches and consumer outreach without forcing conflicting rules into a single file. The root handles your baseline and the subfolders handle the specific. Done. So drop a comment here. Would you build this hierarchy for your project? Are you interested in seeing this built into labs so that you could grab that and see how these .md files work? What are the next thing that you are interested to see me building so that I can share my experience with you all? See you in the next video.